As is true for many of us, our parents help shape our lives. My father, he believed in grabbing each moment and living each day to its fullest, regardless of the obstacles, to make the best out of every situation. And my mother, she was a pioneer, brave, courageous, selfless, had a huge love for all living things. And it was this courage that she had that helped her push through the darkness and find what was light. It is these examples that I find really shape who I am and helped me understand that having compassion and joy and trust and listening to that voice deep inside, that one can achieve anything. And it is my life's journey that has brought that forward in honor of them and what they've taught me, and how watching them and following their example in life, I've been able to really find that compassion and joy and trust to that silent voice.
Journey with Dr. Gudal Kaba as she visits spiritual spaces and renowned healers around the world to learn more about how we can heal and emerge into our fullest potential, heart, body, mind, and soul. Dr. Gudal, host of the #1 podcast radio show Are You Awake and TV personality, is herself a highly regarded and qualified psychologist and naturopath, as well as being a medicine woman and a spiritual leader of an independent branch of the Native American Church. Who better to help you understand your path to your highest good and introduce you to a wide range of healing modalities than this amazing being who has successfully guided thousands on the quest for inner peace and joyous well-being. Now, let's meet Dr. Gudal. Welcome, Dr. Gudal.
Thank you for having me and doing this show. It's just such an honor, by the way. I just want to make sure I say that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, let's start at the very beginning. You know, it's been said there are no mistakes, that there's always a reason for everything, and this concept extends to the place we are born, our gender, our nationality, our ethnicity. And you were born in Turkey, Izmir to be exact, 90 minutes from the place where it is said Mother Mary lived her last days. Please talk about the significance of your early years and how this has influenced your journey.
I was born on my grandmother's couch, 90 minutes away from where Mary lived her last days. And my mother wanted a natural birth from what I understand, and according to the little neighborhood at the time, it was quite that. I like to have an entrance, I think. I didn't know about Mary's place until I was maybe 13, 14 in there. And a cousin of mine took me for the first time. And there's the city of Ephesus, which is very famous for holding the ruins of an entire city of the Roman era, the Amazonians, the Hellenic period, on and on and on. And it's a huge tourist attraction, but it's, miles and miles and miles of the entire city. Mary's home is on a mountain behind that. She was first taken there, but it was too much of a metropolis, too many people coming, and she had to be protected, obviously. So the mountain behind that is an Armenian village, and a mountain right behind that is where her home is. So driving up the mountain, all of a sudden something just changes, the energy changes. The first time I saw it, obviously it didn't look like it does now. It's just a square stone home with running water, and it was being taken care of by Dutch nuns, a silent order of Dutch nuns that had their convent right behind it, and they ran the place purely on donation from around the world. And they would bead rosaries with the rosewood trees that were there.
Wow.
And they would make the candles. And it was just stunning. And there was an altar with Mary there, but there was a saying outside that was in the Quran about Mary, Jesus, Buddha, Moses, that everybody was a part of God and that all needed to enter and share this space. And the water was very holy, sort of bottled up, and you can set prayers and set your intentions. But just halfway up to that mountain, for me what happened was something just changed. There was a lightness, a pureness of heart. And at the time you could light the candles inside, and there was these hand-rolled candles, and there was this tin with sand in it, and you would light it and set your intention right in front of this beauty of Mary, but in the space that she lived. And just knowing that consciously changes the entire body,
Of course.
And I remember setting the intention for 3 things, and I couldn't leave. I didn't want to leave that space. So finally they dragged me out, we have to go. Within a week, everything I'd intended happened. And we started talking to people in that area, people that grew up close to that. And everyone would say, well, if you need something, you go there and pray. It always happens within 24 hours. But remember to say what you're going to give back if you get what you ask for. It's not always taking.
Right.
It's a giving back. So many people would say, well, I'll feed a family that are poor. I'll do, something about if you give me this, I'll give back. And I came to find out years later that that's a very old indigenous spiritual tradition, that if you ask for something, the importance of making an offering to give back. So, and I think, churches do that in the form of tithing.
Absolutely.
But there's many ways to do that. That was my first introduction. And from that moment forward, I just always had to go. You just know there's something different. How do you explain it?
This emerging into the fullness of your healing gifts seems to be an ongoing journey. And this journey has taken you all over the world, from Western medicine to Eastern healing, from the indigenous to the modern. So please tell me about this journey, perhaps beginning with the Western side as a licensed psychologist, holder of multiple degrees, or whichever one you feel drawn to begin speaking about.
It's so much easier for me to talk about someone else than myself. So let me just say, this is a little bit finding myself feeling a little shy. So I'm going to put that out there because it's important.
Yes.
It's important because it's always been about the work and not about me, but yet I'm the vessel that's had to carry it forward.
Right.
That's true for all of us. We're all that. We all have to touch that place inside of us where we're the vessel to our own divinity, our own wisdom inside,
right.
and whatever we're supposed to do with that while we're here. Parenting, our job, it doesn't matter what those things are almost.
Yeah.
They're expressed. It expresses our soul journey.
Yes.
But ultimately we're here for the soul journey.
Yes.
So when you ask me that, I have to kind of step back and think, okay, what does that really mean? What it means to me, how I hear that, is that I can't do it separately.
Yes.
That they're not separate. That ever since I was a little girl, I saw bridges.
Right.
And I would get excited. It didn't matter if it was just like a little hook bridge or a big bridge, I would get excited. And I came to understand later in a sweat lodge when I was doing my adoption ceremony that that's because my job as the vessel was to bridge things.
Right.
And that didn't come until much later.
Right.
But there's bridges everywhere. The name of my church is Bridging Healing Disciplines. It's always about that. So as a little girl, being intuitive and seeing and feeling people's pain, I didn't know what I was seeing, but things would be dark or they'd be light inside, or I'd see moments of experience traumatic for most people, and it would hurt me. I can remember one time where it dropped me to my knees.
Wow.
It was just too much pain. So somewhere along the line, I just shut it down, all of it down. But it was a long time ago. We didn't have the science then we have now. So I would say things to people like, why are you being mean to that person? You don't know what's happening in their home.
Yes.
And part of that was being someone of different culture, living in different places, so never really fitting in. There are two elements happening at the same time.
Right.
Living in Turkey, living in the United States, changing different places in the United States, never being a part of any of those places. Being intuitive and a chameleon because you have to survive, and then always observing. So all of this was happening, but I was an extremely insecure child. So I couldn't claim that. It just hurt me.
Right.
So the only path I could see in front of me was to make sure no one else hurt that way.
Right.
So as much as I wanted to be a dancer and as much as I wanted to decorate pretty things, I felt my only path was to be a psychologist at a time when psychotherapy was strictly about, the subconscious and the conscious.
Right.
And in graduate school, I would get in trouble because intuitively I knew there was more. So instead of things being cause and effect, to me, I would see everything in those bridges as a circle.
Right.
And I would say those things and get in trouble. And already an insecure person, so I stopped saying those things, but kept searching.
Right.
And it was right about that time that the AIDS crisis hit. And I was drawn to help. My friend, my dearest, dearest friend passed away. And that was his request of me, help. So I did. I didn't know what I was doing. So for 10 years, I did a support group, and it was during that time that I could see being expressed what I believed in my heart. in how people lived out their last days and how that dignity could become and what people could have, and those that could never come to acceptance and what happened to their bodies, and those that came to a deep sense of acceptance and peace. Because when the AIDS crisis first came out, there was the added element of, you know, you're gay and there's something wrong with you, and people were losing their churches and their homes and their families. And for many, our Mondays were the only thing they had, you know?
Right.
And the research bared it out then too. So nothing's an accident. And people started seeing that how we thought and felt affected our physical self. And I was walking around going, oh, finally, there's a name for this thing. It really exists. I wasn't crazy. Because you can feel a little crazy.
Having multiple degrees in Western medicine is just one part of who you are. Just as important is the side of your life where you've spent many years training with masters in various holistic healing traditions. So please elaborate on your experience of training in the mind-body healing traditions.
You know, as we talk about with David Brownstein,
Yes.
we'll come back to that, who
Yes.
was my medical teacher. It was during that time that I helped people for 10 years that I had a physiological collapse. I was doing my PhD studies, went through a divorce, lots of early difficulties, the chronic stress that builds up and can cause an immune system breakdown. Again, the thing that I used to see always in bodies, there are no accidents.
No.
Even the worst of things that happen, and boy, I tell you, working with people for the many years that I've been working, we all suffer, we have suffering, you know. But even those worst of things can become the vehicle that takes us where we're supposed to go. And when we're in the throes of that, it's the last thing you want to hear.
Yeah.
You know, oh, well, it has purpose or it has a reason. We throw that around, but it's deeper and bigger than that. So when I had my physiological collapse, I was 1 week from dead, and I was led through a friend who did acupuncture, who sent me to a chiropractor who diagnosed the B12 deficiency, who told me about David Brownstein. You see how life happens, you know?
Yes.
So my father drove me there, bless his heart, 2 hours. I collapsed on the table. Young man he was, and I'm coming back around to your question through this, so
Yes.
bear with me for a moment. Because again, nothing is a straight road.
Exactly.
He was a young doctor who'd worked as a physician for maybe a year. I may have the timing wrong. And he felt inside of him that this is wrong. The way we're doing this, we're hurting people. I can't be a doctor and hurt people. I'm either going to quit medicine or I'm going to do it differently. So he tells convention to, you know, go away, heck with you, and opens a little office, and he's going to treat people from an integrative model when this was unheard of. That's where I land.
Right.
And he looks at me and he checks my figures. You know, my blood pressure was, I believe, something ridiculous like 70/50. My body temperature in Fahrenheit was 93 and normal is, you know, 97. I was, you know, non-functioning, and I was maybe 80, 90 pounds heavier than I am now because nothing was working. And I couldn't see. He holds my hand, he looks at me, and he says, you're almost dead, a week away from dead, and I'm going to fix you. And tell me about your stress. Well, of course, I break down crying. Somebody finally heard me. And from that time, when I started that piece of my journey, then the awakening of the spiritual piece came back. Because I had shut that door down. I couldn't do what I was doing and be in the hospitals and help bury over 200 people and feel all their pain to the degree that I was when I was doing my own stress. So somewhere along that line, a wall had gone up. And I wasn't intuitive. I was empathic and compassionate, but I wasn't intuitive. But then I couldn't work. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't get out of bed. I would have seizures if I did. Couldn't eat. And during that time, the spirit guides, the ancestors started coming. But they also came from outside. Somebody would introduce me to somebody. I was doing healing weekends, you know, for people living with AIDS. These are intense weekends of healing. And Mackay, who's now passed, was a Native American healer. And before he passed away, he showed up at my door. And in the traditional way of being gifted to become a healer, a master will give you a healing gift. It's handed over in a way. Now, for some, it's already in us, and that comes forward. So sometimes the master will awaken that further or give you a new gift. Mackay gave me a new gift that day. He gave me the gift of working with my hands. I didn't know why he was there. But then after he left, all of a sudden I started doing healing with my hands. So during that 2 and 3 year period, as I was being medically treated for an emotionally caused immune system disorder, which broke down my physical body, my spiritual self came back. And after 2 or 3 years of that kind of healing, I was told to open an office. Like, okay. So I was working as a psychologist in a practice, and I opened an office and I put a table there, and I'm like, okay. And people just started calling out of the blue. That's a little bit how it happened.
Listening to the call of your soul.
Exactly.
The Native American philosophy of all our relations, which speaks so beautifully to the divine connection of all living beings, it seems to be an important part of your own philosophy, and the idea that we're all synergistically part of a whole as we journey through life and encounter cycles that come up in life. There seem to have been many people who were profoundly important in your journey and with whom you had an exchange of energy. Now, in a subsequent episode of Peace Squared, we're going to be exploring these relationships further, but for now, please share with us how these relationships have affected your life. Perhaps maybe beginning, as you had touched on him already, with the award-winning doctor and author of 11 books, Dr. Brownstein.
It's about, you said a moment ago, the call of the soul. Something that has always been the words that have vibrated through and resonated through me, that we have to follow the call of our soul. Yes, everybody is synergistically connected. We are all one. I've not reached this state, but I've had moments of touching where when you look at people and you see the divine in every face that you see, in every plant that you see, in every experience that you have. Some people know it in this kind of language and others just live it. And I would say Dr. Brownstein's one of those people. And you'll hear him speak about that, how he followed the call of his soul, and now he's a prolific author. He puts it out on the table. He doesn't listen to convention. He does his own research. He's world-renowned. And that was my teacher. How blessed can a person be? Didn't know it at the time. I just wanted someone to help me feel better. Sometimes it's really all we need. We need somebody to look us in the eye and just get it.
Yeah.
It's about bearing witness, sitting witness, and it's written in every single form of religion or spirituality from the beginning of time.
Yes.
Or it's drawn in pictures if there was no speaking yet. That just being one with another is incredibly healing if the other receives that witnessing. We have to receive it. We can block it. We can sit there and love and do everything. All kinds of healing has to be received. All kinds of love has to be received. The thing that I would ask anybody, and I do now consciously, is to look in to see if you're willing to receive. And many will say yes, even though they're not, because it's out of awareness.